We have two storm systems that we will be watching over the next week that will bring some snow across portions of the central United States into the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region. And again, this will be late this week into this weekend, and I'm going to show you the snowfall potential map here. So here is the snowfall potential map that I created yesterday. It still holds pretty true, I would say. This is valid for Thursday through Sunday. And I think that we can really shave off most of this light blue colored region here. While snow is still possible because there are some uncertainties with the track of the systems that are going to be coming through late this week into this weekend, I do think that the best chance for snow, and that's why I listed it in dark blue as the most likely, is here through northern Texas, Oklahoma Panhandle, all the way up into the upper Midwest in this dark blue region here. I think that's where the best chance of snow occurs between both of the systems here through this weekend. And I want to show you the models now. So what we're going to be dealing with is two back-to-back systems, like I said, that is likely going to bring a swath of snow across portions of northern Texas into the Oklahoma Panhandle area and across Kansas and all the way up into Wisconsin and Michigan. With the first system coming through, there's really not going to be a whole lot of cold air present. I'll show you here. Look how far north this 540 line here is, and that is what we typically use as the rain-snow line, give or take, but we typically use it as the rain or snow line. And there's really not much cold air in place ahead of system number one, so there's not much cold air for this system to play with here and interact with. But I do think that there will be some snow potential on the back end of this storm system across Nebraska, across northern Ohio or Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And that's as the cold air wraps around on the northwest side on the back end of this first system here. I think that's where the best snow potential exists, is on the back end of this first system. But then notice what this first system does as it passes through the region here. I'm going to move this along. Look at the 540 line. It moves further south. Now it's across northern Missouri and across Kansas, northern Illinois. So the 540 line moves south because we get this cold air to rush in behind it. It's not frigid air, but it's cold enough which sets the stage for system number two moving into this weekend. And that gives system number two some cold air to play with as it moves up through the central United States into the upper Midwest, into Michigan, Wisconsin, and that's where the storm system will intensify as it moves along this pre-positioned frontal boundary that system number one puts in place. And that is where, around here in the upper Midwest, Wisconsin and Michigan, that's where I think that the greatest snowfall potential exists, and it could be a moderate snowfall. It's not going to be anything like the blizzard that we had last week, but that's where the storm system is going to intensify. We're going to get cold air on the back end of the system, and that's where I think that the best chance of snow exists. I want to show you here what it looks like in the upper levels. So this is the piece of energy diving down into the southwest portion of the U.S., and it's going to round the base of the trough, and it's going to push on up through the central U.S., and this is the piece of energy that's going to be responsible for system number two that brings a greater swath of snow across the central U.S. into the upper Midwest and Great Lakes region. And it gets out ahead of the trough and pushes up to the north into Canada through late this weekend. So like I said, this first system that we deal with across the Midwest and the central U.S. brings down the cold air, and it sets the stage for this system here that's riding up through the central U.S. to bring a swath of snow again to portions of the central portions of the country and the upper Midwest into the Great Lakes region. But another notable thing about this storm system is the cold air that will spill into the eastern U.S. after this storm system passes here. You can see how far south the 540 line gets. It gets down into northern Georgia, across South Carolina. So after the storm system passes, we are going to have a frontal boundary that drapes all the way down into the southeastern portions of the U.S. and along the east coast. And that will result in colder temperatures early next week before temperatures do rebound slightly towards the middle portions of the week. Let me show you here. I'm going to move this along here. You can see ahead of our next system that will pass to the north, temperatures are going to rebound. But then after this storm system passes, we're going to get cold Arctic air to filter back into the eastern portions of the U.S. And then we're going to get another frontal boundary to drape all the way down here into the Gulf and along the east coast. And that means that we do have the potential for snow across the Northeast late next week into next weekend. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it depends on, do we get a piece of energy to dive down south and interact with the Gulf moisture and the frontal boundary that's going to be draped along the East Coast? That remains to be seen at this point, but we are going to have the ingredients in place across the eastern U.S. for a potential northeast snowstorm late next week into next weekend. But I'm not saying it's going to happen. I really, at this point, I don't know. It's too far out in the future for me to be able to say if it's going to happen or not. But the potential is there for a storm to interact with that cold air that we're going to have in place across the Northeast. So stay tuned. If there are any updates, I will post videos throughout the week. And thank you guys for watching. And that's the forecast for today. So enjoy the playoffs.